Let's talk about some of these CDs. Let's talk about Blood Weapon and Delirium. Blood Weapon is probably the worst cooldown in the game, I would say. Blood Weapon is a secondary off GCD. Now, what do I mean by secondary off GCD? Most abilities in the game are versatile. They can be used for both. But in this particular case, Blood Weapon is definitely, without a doubt, 100% a secondary off GCD. So what does that mean? I'll draw it up. You have your GCD here. Okay? We're going to do a Siphon Strike. What is this? A guy down here? Here's his hand. Here's his hand, there's his head, there's his other hand. And he's got a star right here. Okay, this is Siphon Strike. When you hit this button, there's gonna be a timer that goes like this. Watch down here. See that timer? See this down here? How fast that timer goes is dependent on your skill speed, and your ping. It really matters because if your ping is too high, you're not going to be able to 2 off GCDs in 1 GCD. Right here, first, second. That means that you want to hit your second off GCD no sooner than right here. And sometimes right here might be too soon, depending on how slow your skill speed is. So you may need to shift this up to like right here. If your skill speed is fast, you're going to be fine to use it right here. But if your skill speed is slow, you're probably going to need to use it right around 75%. Now, why is Blood Weapon a secondary only? Because of the way it's designed. Because Blood Weapon is very, very, very shit. If you read Blood Weapon, it says the duration is 10 seconds. Okay, well, this is a lie. This is a lie. Do not believe Blood Weapon is 10 seconds. This is a big debate. This is the biggest debate. Okay, this is the type of debate. You're on Tinder, you're flipping through, and you see this smoking lovely lady. Ooh, she's into anime. She plays Final Fantasy XIV. She's into D&D. She plays Magic the Gathering. Literal 10 out of 10 waifu, okay? Super hot, got a big booty. Big, okay, you get what I'm saying, okay? You want her to step on your nuts, okay? That's how into her you are. Now you super like that. Boom, that's the easiest super like you've ever seen. Easiest fucking super like you've ever seen. Then she messages you back and you're super fucking happy. You're super excited. You're like, oh my God! You're like telling your roommates and shit about it. And you're like, yo, check her out, dude, check her out. You know, you're saying that shit. And then when you meet her, you realize that she has used every single MySpace angle in the galaxy. She actually used someone else's pictures and she has a beard. You meet her and she looks like me. Hi, I'm Veronica. That's what happens. You get debated. That is what Blood Weapon is. It is the big debate. Blood Weapon is not 10 seconds. It is like 9.5 at best. 9.5 at best. So what you want to do is you have to use Blood Weapon at the secondary off GCD slot. Here, I will show you. First, second. Now, you will see that you get in 5 GCDs. There's 2, there's 3, here's 4, and finally here's 5. You will see 2 different MP ticks from Siphon Strike, 1 being from Siphon Strike, 2 being from Blood Weapon, okay? This is why you must use this as a secondary off GCD, because if you use this as a first off GCD, you will not get in 5. And now, when we're on the topic of Blood Weapon, I want to go over this stupid shit here. This is why Dark Knight sucks. If you notice here, this is a fucking spell, okay? This is a spell. Yeah, that's right. Why the fuck would they put a spell on Dark Knight? Dark Knight's a melee. Why am I casting spells? Yeah, well, they fucking did it. They put a spell here. So if you notice, you have 2.5. Now, look, that's not my skill speed. That's not my skill speed, dude! Well, too bad, because it's a spell. That's your spell speed. You better get those spell speed melds out unless you want to hit 2.5, because look, now it's 2.4. You see the difference here? 2.4 versus 2.5 is pretty fucking big. Here, I will show you. This is the stupidest shit ever. Okay, watch this shit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, look, I didn't get it. Oh, I didn't get it. I even clipped my GCD a little bit and I still didn't get it. This is an oversight. Remember how I said Blood Weapon wasn't 10 seconds? Now there are ways you can get around this, but it requires you to have at least 50 blood gauge. If you do this 5 times in a row, you're not going to get it, or it's very highly unlikely you're going to get it. But let's say you go in with 50 gauge. Okay, so yes, you can AoE. Yes, you can. And you still might be able to get it. So like I should get this AoE here. Okay, I got the AoE there. So I did get 5, but it took a little bit of, tweaking. I basically had to replace 2 of the abilities with blood spillers. So I did a blood spiller, then I did two AoEs, then I did another blood spiller, then I did a final AoE. The final AoE, it being 2.5 seconds, doesn't matter because the length of the AoE doesn't matter because the only portion that does matter is the beginning. So this could be 10 seconds and it wouldn't matter. You would still get this GCD. But because blood spiller goes off of my skill speed, I was able to do blood spiller, then my AoE combo, then another blood spiller, and that was just fast enough to get in the final ability. So whenever you're doing AoE, keep that in mind. Dude, every time I pop Blood Weapon, the first thought that enters my mind is, oh fucking God, I hope I get all my GCDs in. That is how bad Blood Weapon is. Here is one thing to keep in mind. Whenever you use Blood Weapon, remember we talked about it, secondary off GCD. Secondary, always mandatory, 100%. Don't question it. If anyone tells you differently, their brain is not functioning properly, do not listen to that person. Here is a tip that will help you never to overcap. All Blood Weapon does is give you 1 Edge of Shadow and 1 Blood Spiller. So what do you do before you use Blood Weapon? Every time you use Blood Weapon, you use an Edge of Shadow and you use a Blood Spiller, either before or during or something. It doesn't matter. It's flexible. It's up to you. But every time you use Blood Weapon, you should get a Blood Spiller because 5 GCDs, 5 times 10 is 50. You should get 1 Edge of Shadow, okay, 600 MP. 600 times 5 is 3,000. Just use a blood spiller and use 1 Edge of Shadow. That's it. 1 blood spiller, 1 Edge of Shadow during your blood weapon, slightly before your blood weapon, and you're solid. You will never overcap. Now we're going to move on to Delirium. Delirium is also a secondary off GCD. The reason why is because, again, 10 seconds. You need to do 5 GCDs in Delirium, just like Blood Weapon. Both of these are secondary off GCDs. You want to do Delirium like 60%, 75% through the cast. Here's another thing too. You can cut your combo. Well, interrupt your combo rather. Okay, so what I mean by that is you can start with a heavy slash and then you can, or hard slash, and then you can go into Delirium and then you can continue your combo like I just did with Siphon Strike, but it has to be done, smooth, very fluid. If it's your first time attempting it, you might fuck it up. You have to be able to hit it, that magic time, 60%, 75%, somewhere in there. You cannot clip it all. And it depends on your skill speed. If your skill speed is super slow, then you can't do it at all, which is another reason why I recommend 2.40 or 2.41. 2.42 is the absolute slowest I would go. After 2.42, it becomes inconsistent. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you don't use Delirium as a secondary off GCD. For those of you that know what's going to happen, I'm very sorry. I apologize. Shield your fucking eyes, boys, because here we go. All right, 1, 2. We're trying to get 5, 3, 4. Oh! See that shit? We didn't get 5. It's very, very important that you use Blood Weapon and Delirium as a secondary off GCD, okay? The rest of this shit kind of doesn't matter. It only matters in the sense of a cooldown. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you're not going to overcap on mana. So typically you would use like a Plunge and then an Edge of Shadow. And the reason why is because you want to get your Plunge on cooldown. Does it really matter that much? Kind of. Right after I used Plunge and I used Edge of Shadow, I purposely used an Edge of Shadow into a Carven Spit. And I did that because I wanted to explain why it matters. The reason why it matters is because now in the fight, you have shifted your Carven Spit, which should have been a first GCD, to a secondary off GCD. So when this comes back off cooldown, like right here, so like this came up literally right when my GCD came up. Whereas if I would have used it half a second before I used Edge of Shadow, this would have came up before my GCD. So I could have actually used it before my GCD. So that's what they call drift. That's when your off GCD slowly get slower and slower and slower and slower. And when I say slower, I mean you use them later and later and later in your rotation. That's a tiny bit more advanced than what I want to talk about today, but for today, just know that it is possible that some of your off GCDs will do what they call drifting, and that is when it slowly gets back farther in your rotation. Right now, don't worry about it too much. Just focus on hitting the buttons, because believe it or not, there are people that they just don't hit their buttons, man. They do not hit their fucking buttons, and that's a concern. So these are some tips. Whenever you use Blood Weapon, just burn an Edge of Shadow and burn a Blood Spiller. Another like good form of practice is always hold about 3k mana. You know, always hold the 3k mana for TBN. Always use both these as a secondary off GCD. Typically, you're going to use Plunge just to get it on cooldown, and you're going to pocket one of them at all times, just in case. But there are some cases where you actually want to save both because you need 2 gap closers. That's more of a fight by fight kind of thing, more of a case by case basis. It's not really something that is a general rule. More of a general rule is to just make sure that it's never off cooldown like this for very long. So for instance, you use it and then there's going to be a timer, right? It's like 27, 26, 25. You know, you have another charge here. So probably when this gets to about maybe like, you know, 8 seconds, 7 seconds, or, you know, under raid buffs or whatever, you know, you can use it again and then it'll be up again. Those are just some common, don't be bad DPS shit. You know, when this is up, just use it. When this is up, just use it. I have a macro for Salted Earth. This Salted Earth macro will place it right underneath you. So for instance, when I hit this macro, it's just going to place it right underneath me. One button. So it's pretty good. Can I explain why the same thing is copied in the macro so many times? It makes it activate faster. You can do the same thing with sprint, actually. This actually works. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to use the bathroom real quick. Then I want to talk about some CDs. All right. Wash hands? No. Why would I wash my hands? I don't have a dick. I pee out of my mouth.